Hello and welcome to another Demis Hellen tutorial. We are going to talk about arps, arpeggios, trance arpeggios, broken chords. They all mean the same thing, and that is exactly what I just said there, a broken chord. So we're going to talk about how we can manipulate them, make them sound a little bit more serious, make them sound a little bit more harmonic. And it all comes in with utilising the harmonies with each other and understanding the scale. And I know most of you are probably going to go, oh, I'm going to switch off here because I'm not really into music theory. I don't know music theory. But this is really simple if you just listen to how things sound. So I'm going to start with that starting chord there, which is this note. This chord. And that's what it sounds like. So we're going to split that up into a nice, even arpeggio. There we are. The most simple arpeggio you can do. Straight up, you can do that as going down, you can do it going up, you can have it alternating, it's entirely up to you, but that's how we're going to leave it. And if we just throw a rolling bass in there on D, just because we're using the root note here, we've got a good starting point. Now, just moving the bottom note up one white note, you kind of get this discombobulated feel. That sounds really nice. That doesn't. Now, that can pose as an issue, and most people just overlook that and walk away. But you've got to understand your harmonies and melodies and understand what it feels like and sounds like. And if you're playing that chord, but you've broken it, instead of it playing all the notes at the same time, you get this. You get a nicer feel. And I just want to add, we're using the E scale. We're just going to use a standard E scale, all white notes. That's it. So no black notes, nothing to confuse you. And what we're going to do is we're just going to mess around. We're going to shift this first note up. So now it's playing the first part of that scale. I say E, it's meant to be D, sorry. So we're playing the D scale. All white notes still. Okay, and from the D scale here, we're using D, and then we're using the next white note in the sequence, then we're using the F in the next. So we've got all three of the first notes of that particular scale playing, and then we have a jump with a space. Whereas before, this was like this, and you had note, white note space, note, white note space, note. So it's nice and equal. Standard triad. So just shift that up and have a listen. So you get a much more interesting sound. Now, if we was to extend this, okay, so I've just copied it over, it's identical. And now I want the bass to go down one note. So keeping in the scale, missing the black note, obviously going straight to the white note, that's the next note down. What can we do? So we can have, we'll copy this back over in a second, and we'll look at it in chord form. Okay, so this is our starting chord here. And we've moved it down one note, so we could move it down to a C, just make sure everything's on white notes, equally spaced, and you'd get this. Sounds nice, but it sounds really basic. And again, we could do what we did there and have it one note up. And it sounds nice, but transitioning from that to that, it's not going to sound as impressive. It's not going to have that edge to it. So what you can do is if you split that back into a normal triad, and what you can see is this chord works still. So we've got a C and then an E. So if we was to put the bass note up here to this C, you can see we've got a space and a note, a space and a note, and a space and a note. And what we've done essentially is created a whole new chord, but just added a note into it. And you can see it's a B, which is here on the bass. So it sounded a little bit weird playing it there, but up here it adds a different tonal quality. And you don't need to understand the theory. It is really good to learn it. By all means, please learn it, because that is just literally the easiest way to get your head around things. the B adds some extra harmonic to it. So if you was to look at these notes in sequence, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we've just added the 7th note of the scale, and we've added a 7th. So take away that C because it's already down here in the bass. We've created a 4-note chord. So we'd have this, and it doesn't sound too great. So we're just going to arpeggiate it. Okay, so we have this. So it sounds a little bit off. So we could do the same again as this pattern here. We could shift it up 1 white note. But it still sounds wrong. And this is where my style comes into it. Instead of using that chord, you can use that chord, but you'd have to start with a different one, obviously, here, is drag it across. And because this note has already dropped down to a C, and then you've got the next note as an E, so back up to here, we've got a 1-note space. We've still started the chord, but then we're using the 2 notes from the previous chord to give it some effect. So it doesn't move, but the bass gives it a whole new harmonic feel. Okay, and then this is where you can start messing around. Like we could have this here. Still sounds pretty basic. So there's many ways you can approach these arpeggios. So I'm just going to have a mess around here, and I have a good understanding, but sometimes just shifting things around, you come up with ideas that you necessarily wouldn't have arrived at the beginning. Okay, so let's just play this through, and I'll just let you listen. Okay, so that is a basic arpeggio. I necessarily wouldn't use that as my trance track because it's a little bit off-center to how I would build my melodies, but you can get an idea of how you can manipulate things, and you can see on these second bits, I just not shifted an octave, but I just shifted it up literally like that, and then just check the notes, and you go, oh, that's what should work. So let's have a look at another example here. Let's use a different sound just to mix things up. We'll mute that one. And it would help if we have. So let's start on the same chord. Let's make things really simple. Okay, so I'm just going to record this bit in so you can see how the pattern forms. Let's just start that again. Just seem to have a bit of a lag on it there. For some reason it wasn't showing it being recorded, but hey ho, there we are. For some reason it won't lengthen those, so I'll just do it by hand. In fact, we'll have them shorter. So again, that is the same arpeggio as the previous sound, but this sound gives it a bit more edge because it's got different harmonic content with the detuned saws. So you can see I've played a rhythm and it's just repeated here. So to give it a little bit more energy, we can fill these gaps in, and you've seen me do this before. We'll use the octave above just because, no we won't, we'll use it below because I can see it better down here. So you just use this as a guide. You can see that there's a note occupying that space, so I'm going to fill that one, fill that, that's already been occupied, that is, okay, and then it's just the same rhythm throughout, so we can copy and paste that across. So now, and we could have that an octave higher. Sounds quite nice. Or we can have it all on the same line, which gives you a more staccato feel. So we're going to keep it here, but we're going to start on a different note. So just changing the note gives it a whole different feel, but we were keeping within this scale, starting from D to D, just using white notes. So now you can return it to neutral, and you get that nice serious rise. And if you want, you could have a bar fall here. Or we could have half a bar. Or we could have it drop one below this so it rises back into it. So you're always looking to create that loop back into the beginning of your chord sequence, even if they're all playing the same notes on the top melody line. And that's how you can make your arpeggio sound a little bit more complex as well. By adding these bottom notes in that start creating this whole like weird scape. And then there's nothing stopping you moving these notes around. So you can start moving these notes to complement all these other ones. Keeping within the same scale, we're on A, and our top note is A. So we've already kind of established a central point again in our thing. Instead of starting on E, we can start on A, so it's part of the scale, and obviously it's incorporated into our arpeggiated line. So what I mean by giving it a little bit more life, we could then start following the rhythm of this. We could put that onto F. And on one line that might sound like this. So maybe it might sound better reversed. It has an interesting quality to it, so what we'll do is we'll drag it across here. And we could have this one dragged down to A. and then again maybe down to A. So I'm not liking the F here, it sounds a little bit odd, so let's try G. So I think E is going to work better because we've got our melodic line here starting on E. And straight away we have this really, really nice melodic line there. I don't actually mind that, so I'm just going to glue them because there was a clip underneath. And what we can do, have that there, just fade it in nicely. So you can see how it's developed just from using straightforward chords, just keeping that same top line. A lot of trance works like that. And just start creating some patterns in your bass line of that melody, and then you can transpose these into bass sounds if you wanted to kind of reinforce all this low end and use the same patterns, use the same notes, and obviously then start processing it like a bass line. So there's so many ways you can approach starting a sequence like that. And it's not a case, hopefully you can see, it's not a case they kind of just draw the notes in order and it sounds brilliant. It's a case of building, and then there's slight trial and error and experimentation. You know what's going to work. Eventually, with the knowledge of a bit of theory behind you, you start to work out, yeah, that's going to sound better than this note, and you just head for it straight away. But the more practice, literally, the more experience you'll get. And I wouldn't say I'm epic at creating arpeggiated melodies. However, I do consider myself to have a good understanding and can build a decent arpeggio. Hence this one, it's not the greatest, but it does sound really nice. And it flows well. It comes out of that section there and falls nicely into that. So I'm just going to edit this and put that to a G and just see what this sounds like. Adds a little bit more seriousness in there. So obviously it's down to the key as well, how serious it sounds. But again, listen to how that sounds compared to the first sound we used. Because it's a softer sound, it's a bit more plucky and smooth. It doesn't have that same tone to it because, one, it's a smooth sound. Two, it's not utilising as much detune in the super saws and all that other stuff that you use. So, and synth process sounds in different ways as well. So take all those things into account. Plus, if we actually look here, we have got some processing. That's what it sounded like straight out of the box. And then it's heading through this synth channel here. Okay, so I hope that's given you a bit of a better insight into the whole kind of arpeggio scene. Give you some ideas. I know it starts off a little bit weak with the bad chord system, but it's best to create a bad one and then create a good one, because you can see the progression, because a lot of my melodies are just rubbish. They might sound okay, but they're not quite on the mark. So it's just trial and error and just keep practicing. So if you enjoyed the video, let me know in the description, the comments below. Also share and like the video. The sharing and the liking really does help push it out to the other people that are really seriously trying to find out how to make trance. So help them find it and build the community so we can help each other more. And finally, subscribe and hit the bell icon. And when you've hit the bell icon, please make sure you've clicked all so you can see all of my uploads when I post them, and you'll get a notification. because just keeping it on the standard setting, you seem to get to know maybe every second video. In some cases, I've set it up on a separate account and it's come up every 10 videos, so it could be anything. So just hit that bell icon if you are serious about learning trance. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.